Welcome to Meet the Artist. What we just saw is some tape of Giants of Jazz, which is a terrific jazz series that the South Orange Department of Cultural Affairs puts on, one of 3 series they do each year. Our show today has had me very excited for quite some time because this is Jazz Appreciation Month. April is JAM, Jazz Appreciation Month, as designated by the Smithsonian Institute. And I wanted to do a show that really harkens to one of my great loves, which is jazz, and a great love of SOMA, South Orange Maplewood. Right here, we have some of the best jazz artists around, and we have a plethora of jazz events that all of us can go out and enjoy. So tonight we're going to talk about that. We have Judy Wookage with us, who is Director of Cultural Affairs for South Orange, and we have Jim Buchanan, Director of Cultural Affairs for Maplewood. And let's start with you two talking about the role of jazz in our community. Jim, I know for Maplewood, I help out with Arts Maplewood, which is one of the important producers of jazz in Maplewood. And we've had incredible musicians from Fred Hirsch to Luciana Souza to Kurt Elling. And we just had Fathead Newman, and coming up in May, we've got the big blues concert.
Yes.
How long has that been running, and how did it get started, and what's the impact it's had?
All right, it's produced by Arts Maplewood on stage, and these are all volunteers.
Yeah.
As a lot of the things we do in the arts in town, we have volunteers, people with a passion. In this case, right now, Peter Katz produces on stage, and he comes to it with a love of jazz, and he. The history of it is about 10 years now that we've been bringing artists. Freddie Hirsch has been here 3 times over the years.
Who is a Grammy-nominated artist.
Originally, I heard him as a soloist, and then in later times he brought a trio, and then most recently with Kurt Elling. And our series is throughout the year. We have at the Bergdorf Cultural Center on Durand Road, we produce these concerts, and then we have a jazz weekend in October.
Right.
We usually have a Friday night jazz jam at different restaurants around Maplewood, and on Saturday, a headliner.
But can I ask Jim, like, why jazz? Was jazz...
why
was it chosen?
Yeah, well, because of the energy here. We have a love for jazz. The jazz musicians volunteering at Arts Maplewood, people like Ben Williams and myself. I'm a bass player, and I grew up playing jazz as well. We have a passion for the music, and we're getting a great response. When Bill Charlett played here 3 times, it was a filled house.
Yeah.
Same with David Fathead Newman last month.
That's right.
You couldn't find an extra seat. It was just a lot of positive energy.
And, I think that's a great point that we'll talk with Judy about, too, is that our community, SOMA, is full of jazz artists and very cultural, very artistic people who I think maybe are drawn to jazz. Its improvisational sense, its energy, its kinetic energy. And Bill Charlett used to be a resident of Maplewood. And we have T.S. Monk, the drummer, who lives in South Orange. We have John Lee, who's here with us tonight. Wonderful bassist, who we'll talk with soon, and Claudio Rediti, a trumpeter, who's also with us tonight. And Judy, with Giants of Jazz, the video that we saw earlier in the show, how long ago did that get started, and what kind of impact has it had? Why jazz?
Well, Giants of Jazz was in its 8th year last year. We're going to be doing the 9th one. It's an annual concert that we have. And actually, the whole performing in concert series started with a simple New Jersey Pops outdoor concert 12, 13 years ago. And another resident in town came and said, why don't we be doing 4 outdoor concert series, and then came to do indoor concert series to help raise funds for the outdoor concert series. And from there, John was involved with that advisory board and wanted to, thought of establishing a Giants of Jazz as, again, as a fundraiser for the outdoor concerts. And that's about when I came into the scene from music, because I was originally in the fine art gallery end of it. And little did we realize, but Giants of Jazz just took off on its whole own energy. And it is a passion of a lot of the people who live in our town, and we have a very sophisticated taste in our town. We do an indoor jazz series, Jazz at the Baird, and it's much smaller and intimate, 75 to 100 seats.
And again, I want to point out the level of artists that John gets for Giants of Jazz, that you have at the Jazz at the Baird series and the outdoor concert series, is pretty incredible.
It's an amazing. In fact, I think the New York Times had touted the Giants of Jazz as one of the best jazz festivals in the state, and it's a one-night concert. But there's enough musicians on stage to house it as an outdoor concert for over a weekend.
Yeah.
We have anywhere between 20 and 35 musicians on stage of world acclaim.
Actually, John, can you tell us more about Giants of Jazz? When you started putting it together, what was kind of your concept? I know your background is pretty remarkable. You worked with Dizzy Gillespie. You now are the executive director of the Dizzy Gillespie All-Star Band. You perform around the world. Did you just want to get your friends together? What was your idea about Giants of Jazz?
Well, we needed a new vehicle to raise funds was one of the reasons to continue the outdoor series. And well, it's funny because our mission now is to honor somebody each year.
Okay.
But that wasn't realized till the second year, I think, or the third year when we realized to do that. But it was just to have a nice jazz concert here and to use that as a way to raise funds, because jazz is the one music that'll bring everybody up.
But you're pulling in people like Clark Terry, Frank West.
Well, it didn't start like that.
Okay.
It started with Claudio's usually gone in October in Europe. A lot of guys usually, I think the first year we had Jackie McLean, John Faddis.
My goodness.
Do you remember who else was there?
And Slide Hampton and
Slide
Don
Hampton,
Braden,
Don
who are local folk.
Thelonious Monk Jr.
But again, elite in the
we
jazz
had about
world.
12 people.
Local does not mean provincial in
No,
the two
absolutely not.
towns.
I'm just pointing out that
Exactly.
people who don't know the jazz world
Right.
might not understand how fortunate we are in this community to have Don Braden right around the corner, to have T.S. Monk, to have John Lee and Claudio Roditi and Jim Buchanan's trio able to just show up.
And it's developed such a reputation now, even within the jazz world. Last year we had people coming from Boston.
No way.
There was a fellow who has a radio station up there and was calling me 3 days before the concert to see if it was sold out. Somebody coming up from Atlanta going to a Broadway show came out to New Jersey for the Giants of Jazz.
Well, that's such a good point, too, because I was intrigued, Claudio, to learn that your friendship with John is sort of what drew you out here to live. Isn't that right?
Yeah, absolutely. He was the one that convinced our friend Saul Fisher to sell me his house. It's already 6.5 years ago.
And can I ask, Claudio, so you had come out to South Orange to play, is that right? Or to see John?
No, I played here, actually, one of the concerts. I remember that was going to be outdoors, the concerts in the park. And it rained, and the concert was transferred to the middle school that year. But this I don't remember how long ago, maybe 7 or 8.
Seton Hall.
Oh,
Seton Hall.
The
That was
exact,
about 9 years ago.
to reiterate the exact story that happened, this is very interesting. Claudio was going to do an instructional tape. I forget the name of it, but it was for teaching the basics of Brazilian jazz. And he came out to my studio to do the recording, and you stood in my window. You were very reflective, and I said, "What's up?" You said, you kept going, "It's so quiet. It's so quiet here."
Were you living in the city?
Then he was living in Brooklyn.
Okay.
Then he turned to me, he said, "It took me longer to get from my house to Penn Station than from Penn Station to your house."
See?
And I said, "Well, why don't you move out here?"
Yes.
And you were like, "Wow, man."
You know
It
what?
wasn't shortly thereafter that you made the decision.
Yeah,
And
no,
John
actually,
would drive up and down the streets looking for a house for Claudia.
And this is the reason this really strikes me, Claudio, is because that's similar to how I came here. You know, aside from jazz artists who live in Soma, we also have a number of important jazz producers and bookers and executives like Derek Gordon of the Jazz and Lincoln Center, Seth Abramson of Jazz Standard, who is a friend of mine. And Seth said, Jana, you know, I was living in Brooklyn too, Claudio. And he encouraged me to come out here and check out Soma and said, it's great. He said, you'll get here faster than you get to Penn Station. And he was right. So what really made me decide to move out here was the wealth of cultural opportunities here.
And it's beautiful.
And
The
the
area is
jazz.
beautiful.
And the jazz.
Yeah.
So
Now,
have you seen, do you feel good about the jazz component of the arts? in Soma?
Absolutely. We are forgetting, of course, I know the show is about Maplewood and South Orange, but don't forget that in West Orange
That's right.
and East Orange, there
Yeah.
are a lot of jazz musicians there too.
That's right.
And there's a saxophone player called Virginia Mayhew.
Oh, she's
Now,
incredible.
when I moved out of Brooklyn, I used to live on Henry Street. When I moved out of Brooklyn, someone told me, "Oh, Virginia moved right across the street from you." Then a few years later, someone called me up and said, "You know what? Virginia moved here to the Oranges also."
Oh,
I
gosh.
said, "My God, she's after me for some reason." And we do play together very often.
Absolutely. No, it happens quite often. And I think that, you know, hearing your story about people coming from other states even to hear the jazz that we have right here is really illuminating.
Giants of Jazz has been called the greatest one-day jazz event in the state and maybe the country by quite a few writers when they see the lineup and the amount of talent we have. And
Well,
why that's a prime weekend every year, and it's astounding that, I don't know.
John works miracles, and every year the
They
musicians
still
come
have
out
to
saying,
be
I
off.
don't know, John just got me out here, we work miracles. And then he has musicians calling him because they hear what's going on and they want to play.
And that's what I want to get into a little bit too with Cultural Affairs Department of Maplewood and South Orange, the impact that jazz has had in terms of your programming and the kind of feedback that you get.
Well,
Can we
we're taking
talk
it
about
up
that real quickly before
another
we
step
head
in
into the second
in
segment?
the future. We've developed a jazz and film series at 1978, our art center. Well, the first one was last month. We were honoring jazz vocalists, and so we had a nice band and two vocalists, and then we showed some films.
That's wonderful.
Sarah Vaughan, Ella
Thank you,
Fitzgerald.
Tim. Thank you. And Judy,
Good turnout
in
for that also.
closing, I want
Good
to point
turnout.
out that we are headed into our second segment to really get a treat with live with John Lee and Claudio Roditi. And Judy, before we do so, I know that there's some concerts coming up. Giants of Jazz is in October, right?
Giants of Jazz is in October. We're finishing out our Jazz at the Baird series. We do one a month, January through May.
Okay.
John, in fact, and Claudio are doing a special highlight this week on March 18th. And then April, we have Jackie Kane coming in from Jackie and
Excellent.
Roy. She's
And then
playing.
the concert in the Park series.
And the concert in the Park series is happening in July, Wednesdays in July.
So we'll be back for our second segment. Come back and hear some amazing music live.
I helped turn my child's public school into one with extended hours, 6 days a week year-round, filled with loads of academic, cultural, and recreational activities. One with medical and dental services right there. A school where students are excited about learning. There's just one problem. My child doesn't ever want to come home. Turn your school into a community school for excellence. Find out how. Call 1-877-LOVE-TO-LEARN.
Welcome back to Meet the Artists. We're in for a real treat. Two South Orange artists here in our studio. John Lee on bass, Claudio Roditi on piano. Take it away. was terrific. Thank you very much. We feel real fortunate to have you with us because considering your hectic schedules to get you in for this taping tonight, a few days before your big concert here in South Orange at the Baird, which is already on its way to being sold out. Tell us a little bit about how often you play together.
We play together very often, but we have never done this.
A duo?
With an out-of-tune piano.
Well, no, not only that, but this is my debut as a pianist.
Yay, pretty good one, I'd say.
I'm serious.
Yes. Wow,
In my
Claudio.
60 years of age.
Really?
This is the very first time I play piano
Well,
on a
thank
TV
you.
show.
Because you
That's
play for
true.
yourself, right, as a musician.
I play trumpet all the time. you
Right,
know,
right.
And the piano is just at home
A
to
tool.
compose. and
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely. Well, but you do play together, haven't you?
Yes,
Okay,
very
on
often.
occasion.
When I have gigs, John is my bass player. When he get the gigs, I'm his trumpet player, and we go
that's
like that.
terrific. Well, the viewers are very lucky because it's not that often, unfortunately, that you play around town. I know, Claudio, you've played for Seton Hall's jazz series, Jazz in the Hall.
Yes, I've done that once.
Yeah,
Yes.
and John, you'll be playing at Giants of Jazz in October, correct? What was that tune that you
That
just
was
played?
Corcovado, or Quiet Nights, written by
Corcovado,
the great
right.
Brazilian songwriter Antônio Carlos Jobim.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. And what's the next tune that you'll
We're
play?
going to do on Green Dolphin Street, right?
On Green Dolphin
Okay.
Street. Well, thanks again for watching. And John and Claudio Roditi on trumpet this time. Flugelhorn, actually.
That's
yes,
right,
that's
yes.
right. And John Lee on bass will close us out this evening. Come back next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.